What's up, everyone? Let's talk about using the Apple Vision Pro for editing photos for wildlife photography. Don't worry, I'm not gonna wear this the whole time. I wouldn't do that to you. It feels pretty awkward wearing it when you're talking to people too. That's one of the downsides. So I've had the Apple Vision Pro for about a little over a month now, I think, roughly. And I've had the chance to actually put it into practice using it to edit my photography. So seeing my laptop screen mirrored into this, my MacBook Pro screen mirrored into this using Adobe Lightroom Classic, it's freaking amazing. It is. I put a video out already talking about it, showing you guys what it looks like, and that still holds true. Everything I said in that video still holds true for me, using it for about a month now. I've had times where I've actually been able to sit in it for periods of 3 to 4 hours, not steady, mind you, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But overall, in the end, I still love this thing. I'm so glad I got it. It really fits my lifestyle, and just traveling in the van and wanting to be outside and being able to see my computer screen, see the photos, and edit. And there's two things, well, maybe one major thing that I didn't expect or foresee being the case using this. That's a positive. The negatives were pretty self-explanatory, and I think many other videos have talked about that, and they hold true to me as well. And that is the weight and comfort of wearing this thing. I can't honestly say I can put it on and wear it for 2 hours straight without taking it off and just giving my head, eyes, and everything a little break. Not so much eyes, but just my head and everything, you know, my face, basically, just having it kind of pushed against that. It's heavy. It is heavy, and it gets a little uncomfortable after some time. But in general, when I'm photo editing, I'm not sitting there for, 4 hours straight, just nonstop staring at that screen. I'm usually looking around, getting up, taking a break, having a snack, that sort of thing. And so I just do the same thing with this now. And so, every 15, 20 minutes, half hour, I take the thing off, set it down, and just take a break from it. Give my eyes a break, my face a break, and that sort of thing. So that's one thing. The second thing I have had a few photographers ask me about is color accuracy and rendition. And so what I've noticed as I really kind of pay attention to it, looking at photos, the same exact photo on my laptop screen in a controlled lighting environment, and then putting the Apple Vision Pro on and looking at the photo there, and then taking it off and back and forth. And what I've learned is the blacks aren't quite as deep and rich. They are plenty dark, but overall it feels less contrasty and less saturated in the Apple Vision Pro. It is interesting, however, though, I'll point this out, that I can see a lot more shadow detail in this than I can on my laptop screen, even when it's in a lighting controlled environment, that laptop screen. And I'll give you an example. If I have sort of a low-key image with some kind of like rocks and dark shadowy areas, and on the laptop screen I'll adjust it so those values look just black. I don't see any detail in them. But then I put the Apple Vision Pro on and all of a sudden I can see detail in there. And so I have to add more contrast. But the interesting thing is, if I were to use some tools, and I've done this, I've used some tools to actually look at the values of those pixels, there's data in them. They aren't reading 000, and they aren't showing as true black by the numbers. And so the Apple Vision Pro is actually, I think, in the end, showing me a slightly more accurate view of those shadow areas than my MacBook Pro. I have a 16-inch MacBook Pro from maybe 2 years ago. And so I think the laptop screen is actually just a little bit more contrasty, even though that laptop screen can show more colors and probably brightness values than the Apple Vision Pro screens. But I think just because it's so controlled in here, even in a light controlled room, the laptop is still having some kind of reflections, usually some kind of glare, unless it's like completely, you're in like a black room kind of thing. That being said, I think the laptop screen is more accurate to the screen that most people are viewing photos on. So, other laptops, other computer screens, and more importantly, phone screens, which have that high contrast ratio. So I think that's still the more accurate device across the board to finalize a photo on. But I feel like in here, just knowing that difference now, I can just sort of back off the contrast and just leave the photo like the tiniest little bit weak in here, and it's gonna look great when I share it out there. Also, so many times if I sit down to edit a photo from time to time, there's slight differences anyway. And so that to me isn't that big a deal. And I also know, I assume future generations are just gonna get better, right? These are probably the worst Apple Vision Pro screens we'll ever have, but they're still amazing. The last thing I wanna talk about with this is the thing that I didn't really anticipate. And I talked about this in my first video, but it still holds true, and it's even more kind of profound to me, is viewing your photos at that scale. at a giant scale. For example, if I were to turn around and project my screen up here, it would look like it's taking up a space from all the way over here to over here, completely obscuring all the trees and space. It would look like a 40-foot screen out here in this open marsh area. There's something unbelievably impressive about seeing your photos viewed that big. They're so much more immersive, and I think I touched on this in the video before, but there's almost a sense of depth, and I know it's not there. I know it's still a two-dimensional photo. I know the Vision Pro screens aren't doing anything to give it extra three-dimensionality or extra depth or anything like that. But viewing a photo at that scale, it sort of comes across as having that. Photos with depth of field in the photo. So, you know, a foreground or your subject in foreground and then an out of focus or very out of focus background. It almost feels like you're in that scene. There's something so immersive about having the photo take up your vision to the point of where you have to actually look around to see the whole thing. Now listen, that's not how I edit my photos because I don't want to be, you know, looking over here to edit this part. I want to be able to see the whole photo when I'm editing it. So I use sort of a little bit smaller screen when I do the actual editing. But when I'm viewing the photos and I just want to enjoy them, both my own photos and others' photos on websites and stuff like that, I will make that screen and that photo as humanly large as possible in this screen. I don't know why I said humanly. I will make it as large as possible in that screen so I can just feel immersed. And I'm telling you guys, I really don't know if it's just me. I want to get other photographers viewing photos in this headsets to see if they have this same sort of feeling and immersiveness that I'm perceiving when I view these photos. It kind of is mind-blowing to me. It just makes me feel like I'm there, especially scenes that are smaller in frame and show off habitat. Well, no longer do you feel like you have to zoom in to see your subject and see the detail on them. Because it's so large in your field of view, you can actually just look over and see, okay, here's my tiny bird over here, but then I can look over here and take in the landscape and actually physically turn my head to look at this part of the landscape and this part of the landscape. It's incredible. It really is. It's something that I hope everybody gets a chance to view sometime down the road when hopefully this technology becomes more ubiquitous, more reasonably priced, lighter, and just better. My hope is that this form factor is something that's here to stay and is something that we all get to start using as photographers, both to edit our photos and more importantly, I think, to view them. Because I truly think this represents a potential. It's a matter of it's a matter of seeing if mass adoption becomes a reality for this technology. But if it does, I truly feel that this technology has the potential to change how we all view our photography and view others' photography in such a great way. Even close-up portraits look amazing, giant, but I'm telling you, those small in frame shots, that's where it really shines. It really does. Everything just looks better at that scale. The other thing I'll touch on that I've had photographers ask about using this is sharpness. Is it as sharp as my laptop screen when I'm viewing it right in front of me? No, it is not. Is it sharp enough for checking and deciding whether an image is tack sharp or not? Yes. I can still see the difference between an image that, let's say it caught focus right back here versus the actual plane of focus on the eye. If I go back and forth between those, I can easily see, okay, this one has the eye in focus, the other one has just the tip of the bill in focus or something like that. You can see those minute differences. It doesn't quite render like all that super fine detail sharp as it does on a screen at that scale. But again, when you enlarge it up to these massive screens, you really start seeing that detail. And it's not like razor sharp, pixel detailed sharp like it is on a laptop screen. So there is a difference there. I'm not saying there isn't, but the trade-off is so worth it. And I don't feel like that trade-off is a loss that I feel bad about losing. You know, I don't miss that extra detail because the scale of the photo just wows me so much. And it's not to the point of where I can't judge critical sharpness and see when an image is in focus or slightly out. I can still see that. So it may sound like, oh, it's not as sharp as the screen, it's not as good. I really don't feel that way. I really don't. And some other people may. But for me, I've long been a proponent of critical sharpness. So it just has to be sharp enough for the photo. Small in frame, you can get away with less sharp because we're not looking for feather detail and stuff like that. It's all about the entire image. It's all about the impression you get and the feeling you get, and that's where this is better to me. The feeling that you get viewing photos in an Apple Vision Pro on a 40-foot wide screen is so much more impactful and immersive than it is on the sharpest screen I've ever seen. You know, I used to edit on a 27-inch 5K monitor, and the photos look amazing. And I've been stuck on a laptop for a few years now since I've been living in my van, and it's really a downgrade. This now completely leapfrogs that desktop screen and just takes it to a whole other level. So that's my take on it. I am still using it quite regularly, and I've had some photographers say, "I bet you're not going to be using that thing after a week." And honestly, I'm not surprised they said that, because there is that possibility, right? You get something new and expensive and it's brand new, you've never used it, there's an excitement, and that's what that first video I put out really showed and shared, was the excitement of using it. But what happens a month in, 2 months in, when, you know, that shininess has worn off and it's not so special anymore? So far for me, it's still so worth it, and it really solves that problem of, if I want to sit out and feel the wind on me, feel the sun on my face, and edit my photos, the only way to do that is with something like this. Because to view a laptop screen out in conditions like this, even if it was complete overcast, even if it wasn't direct sun, you can't see a damn thing on a laptop screen outside. It's just too glary and reflections, and you can't judge anything. I can't even see a photo at that point to judge accurate sharpness, let alone color and rendition and like highlight shadow detail. But I put this on and I get to do all of that. And so many times I'm sitting there in a beautiful place down here in Florida, and I'm editing, and I see a pelican fly over, and then I see a great blue heron fly behind my virtual screen hanging out in space. And the other day I was sitting in an area near water, and the dolphins were all out there chasing fish, and my monitor was in the way, and I heard the splash, and I just lifted it up in that virtual environment so I could see underneath of it and then watch the dolphins feeding right out there. That to me is so much more of a connection to what we all want as wildlife photographers, that connection to nature. And so much of our time, at least for me, is spent sitting in front of that computer, and now it can be spent outside in nature, actually seeing and viewing this wildlife while I'm doing that, stuck at the computer part of my job. So I still love it. I'll probably come back 5-6 months from now and give another feedback and thoughts on this and see where I'm at with it then. I'm guessing I'm still going to be loving it and using it just as much then. That's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.